global industries that have been, I think, hit hardest by COVID-19. But the wonderful thing is we're here to discuss the future, and we're here to discuss what we're going to be, what we see as moving forward. And we're here to eat all this yummy food. And we're also here to give away a voucher for Le Méridien. We're at the Le Méridien in Kuala Lumpur and KL Central. So, and this is actually quite literally my favorite burger in the world. So, Jan, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And
thanks for asking me.
Pleasure, pleasure. And what did you order? It's
a lamb kofta kebab, I think.
All right. Well, dig in.
Very nice.
dig in. So, Jen, tell us a little bit as you start to carve up this lamb kofta. Now it looks like I want to order that next time. Tell us a little bit about what's happened to the industry, and tell us a little bit of what you see as kind of the next few steps that we need to take to really chart a future out of this kind of current scenario that we're in. While I eat my burger.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it was probably, the international education industry worldwide was probably one of the first things to be impacted by COVID, with students from all countries, all across the world, all needing to return home. That was the first crisis of the year, was universities trying to get their students that were out on, say, student exchange or short-term programs, all had to be brought home. International students who were studying in other countries, often flew home to their own home countries, those that could. Some were stranded, of course. I think it took about 6 weeks for Australian universities to get all their students home from across the world. And of course, it's been an absolute nightmare for everyone in terms of switching to getting everything online. So universities across the world having to suddenly run courses online. Some of them are already sort of geared up to do that, but many weren't. And then the other part of it is that's one part, is that the international students who travel and do full degrees. But the other part that's been equally hit, and which has impacted my business, is the outbound student mobility. So that's the students that are going abroad for a semester on exchange, or
this is students out of Australia
or out of America into other countries. So study abroad, and which we call outbound student mobility, is study abroad, exchange, internships, volunteer programs, all of that out the window.
All right.
And many students,
you've got to cut and talk. You're going to have to I know. I know Matthew Barsing is probably tuned in as well.
I'm trying to learn. I tried to learn not to get something like Matthew Barsing.
Yeah, poor Matthew. Was it 2 weeks ago? He ordered the satay, and he couldn't.
Oh, that's right.
Eat. So I don't want to be accused of not feeding my guests.
Yeah, what's what we can do?
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt you. You were talking about how these different areas have been directly impacted.
So as I was saying, with student mobility, many of the students that take these programs, internship, study tours, volunteer programs, many of that is part of their degree. So that has another impact then, so that not only are they having to study, at home online, but some of the students have a requirement to complete these programs to graduate. So of course, that's just another issue piled on top of everything else. We run a major program here for 150 pre-service teachers each year that come in and they study in, they teach in the national schools here. And we work with, it's the Australian Government, Malaysian Ministry of Education program. So that's part of their teaching practicum. That's one of their, it's credited towards their degree. If they can't do that here, they couldn't even do it domestically at home because they couldn't go into schools because the schools were closed as well. So, and then of course everybody was sort of wait and see. And then they realised, it went on a lot longer than we had anticipated it would. So yeah, a lot of those universities are now in a position where they can't graduate teachers, pre-service teachers, because they haven't met the requirements of the course yet. So they're slowly trying to bring that online and have them, doing their teaching practicums remotely, but it's really, really difficult because not all schools are set up for that as well. So, you know, the impact of this is just really
have you been able
far-reaching.
to do remote, like the Australian teachers, have they been able to do remote teaching here in Malaysia during this time?
Not
or
yet.
Not yet?
We're looking at a program with Korea, teaching into Korea, and we may have a group that are going to look at doing teaching in the international schools here rather than the national schools.
All right.
So that might happen. But the other part of all of this as well is if people can't do internships, that's also a way that companies source talent.
Yeah,
It's the way that they get them in and they sort of see whether they want them, see how they're going to work out. It's how they develop their programs. It's how they feed back to universities what they think needs to be in programs.
Yeah.
All gone out the window this year.
Exactly. You know? Okay. You eat. I'm going to talk about some of my interns who better be watching. You all better be watching. Otherwise, you're in trouble. We also have, of course, a close relationship with a lot of the interns, and we've had some really good interns from Australia. Reese, Marlon, Sophie.
I hope they're watching.
You all better be. Is that your comment down there? Yes. Okay. Good. And then of course Madeline, who's is also currently with our team and doing a lot of work. I mean, it's. I think it's important because you've got to be able to create an ability to work remotely now. So
precisely.
I mean, for me, this is the new reality. Whether it's a new reality for a year or a decade, this is the reality now. And if you're not able to focus and you're not able to deliver remotely, you're not able to deliver. If you can't do it as an intern, you're not going to do it as a staff.
Correct. And that's been a major thing, I guess, is that for me, you know, the global student has been based here in Malaysia, you know, for almost 10 years. So we've always worked remotely with our partners in Australia. So that's just part of the course for us, you know. So the difference this year is that my staff work from their houses instead of my house. But you know, that's been our model. My daughter used to work for me doing my marketing from Warrnambool, and so
Victoria, right?
In Victoria, yeah. So you know, that worked quite well because we just did everything online. So getting students to understand that the workplace has changed, and it shouldn't be too difficult because students that come in country often don't understand what a workplace is. You know, like you know, the sorts of jobs they've had is been in retail or bar work or waitressing or something like that. So
Working
to actually work in an office or something like that is a really big deal for them. And now we have to say to them that, and we used to say to them, this is, you know, there is a variety of way that people work and way, you know, with the various degrees of flexibility and stuff. And now we're saying to them that there is no physical bricks and mortar. You know, that's not necessarily. You know, that's and I was just on the way here. I was listening to them talking about Shopify, which is Canada's largest online shopping thing. They've just decreed that their 500 staff will all be working from home from the future.
Wow,
that's permanent. That's it. That's permanent. So the same as Silicon Valley, Shopify. I believe the people that work for Twitter. So you know, if large multinationals, that huge companies like that are doing it, then you know. Students have to get their heads around the fact that they may not be actually getting on a train and driving their car and going in and putting on a suit. That just might be it might just be a thing of the past.
Fake suits, you know,
that's it.
Zoom suits.
Exactly.
I also want actually, I mean, the one thing I just want to let you guys know about is this burger. It's 200 grams of Angus beef, which is my part, but the amazing part is these pickled onions, which they serve it with. It's really good. It just reminds me of growing up as a kid in Australia. Pickled onions. I don't know.
Well, you got them with your Friday night fish and chips, right?
You know, so amazing.
They came out of that really big jar that used to sit on the counter in the fish and chip shop. I'm really showing my age here. But grab a couple of pickled up onions for Mum because nobody else would eat them. Yeah,
so no, it's so just a little bit of fun there. But what I was, you know, we were discussing before we went on air the kind of knock-on effect. You know, students. I mean, parents of course spend like sometimes their life savings on these people, so they're actually a very valuable part of the economy.
The international education industry in Australia is, I think it's the third largest export. It's
Yeah.
considered an export industry. I think it's Australia's third largest export.
Mm-hmm.
And well, it was.
Yeah.
And it was sitting right up there behind iron or steel
Iron ore
and
food.
wheat. I
Yeah.
think is the other one that's really huge as well. So that's just that has just decimated. It's just cut everything off at the knees. So if you think of them not coming in, that's not just the loss of revenue to the universities. It's the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they spend each year in accommodation, in food, their families flying in for tourism and travel, all that sort of stuff. Whole communities, especially in rural and regional areas, that probably depended upon that extra income each year, gone.
All gone.
So that's gone as well. And the agents that support them, so education agents such as IDP and JMEC, the big ones here in Malaysia, that's they rely upon they rely upon the commissions from the universities for recruiting the students to employ their staff. Then they would do, say, someone like IDP would probably do 3 or 4 large events a year in a hotel like this, and fill a ballroom. 40 universities come in, 2-day event.
Bunch of hotel rooms.
Yeah, exactly. Hotel rooms. All the catering, maybe some add-on events, for alumni, things like that. All gone. And everybody's had to go onto online. So the agents are doing online events. I'm doing my recruitment online, through Zoom. I think the whole world has started doing that. And I think the thing is that I was talking to somebody the other day that we think, why would we go back?
Yeah.
If we're doing it this way now, how would it suddenly, can't you see universities saying, all right, everybody's going to jump on a plane and go and do education events again, that, that if you've been able to do them online, then they're probably going to remain online.
Yeah. So is it something that the hotel industry needs to wake up to?
Well, I think so. Yeah, I think that's just one of those, those longer term things that's happening. It's very interesting. It's the other reason that the universities and well, for people like me, that we will embrace the remote programs is that in that outbound student mobility we were talking about, 25% of Australian students, Australian university students, go abroad. They might do an exchange, they might do a in-country language program, volunteer program, internship, whatever it is, study tour. 25%. So that's 1 in 4. But that means that 75% are not.
Yeah.
And for what? Because in 2014, only 5% of Australian university students used to go abroad. By 2018, 2019, it was 25%, and that was because of the New Colombo plan. So the Australian government put all this money towards this, towards getting students outbound and into Asia, 40 countries in Asia, and it's been quite successful. But it's still only resulted in 20%.
Yeah.
So there's still 75%,
massive amount of growth,
that they're saying, if everybody used to say, oh, it's because they can't afford it. Well, hang on, we're giving them money and they're still not going. So why is that?
What's the
disabilities? Could you imagine having, somebody with a physical disability trying to get around Malaysia?
Yeah, it's not going to be
in a wheelchair, or if they were blind, it would be really, really difficult. People with mental health issues that might be not have the right support that they enjoy at home. People that have families or family responsibilities, or rural and regional kids that spend summer working on the farm, helping with the hay. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. So for those students, that 75%, this is an opportunity.
Yeah, exactly.
By opening up and saying, well, we can still offer these programs, we're going to offer them differently. That means that those 3 out of 4 that for whatever reason are not traveling can now enjoy some kind of an international experience.
Yeah, exactly.
It's never going to be the same as being here.
Yeah, of course.
You can still, provide a lot of experiences both here and at home that will give them that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not one or the other. Start with the virtual experience. I mean, imagine you start with the virtual experience, you get an idea. Okay, look, you could do like a virtual experience in Malaysia, one in Indonesia, one in Thailand, and then you decide, okay,
exactly.
I like this place better, or this fits into my kind of strategic career goals.
Exactly.
Because one thing I see is Australia is expanding into Asia, and Asia is expanding
absolutely.
back in.
My other argument.
It's not going. It's not going away. This is not changing, and if the students are not able to do it, then that's a huge gap.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Australia now has an ambassador to ASEAN.
Yes.
The fastest growing middle class anywhere in the world is in ASEAN. ASEAN as a bloc, those 10 countries make up, I'm pretty sure it's, as a bloc, they are
just give me some of that water.
third largest training post.
30% of global GDP. Well, the RCEP recently signed this, 30%.
Yes, and we now have an AUSCHAM, Australian Chamber of Commerce, ASEAN.
Thank you.
We also have the Foreign Affairs, the white paper last year. The Foreign Affairs, a DFAT white paper about the increased engagement in Southeast Asia. All these things mean that and that's partly why NCP was started, was about trying to get students. Traditionally, students had done their international experiences in the Northern Hemisphere on exchange. Yes. So this is a way of trying to get that engagement in the region. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff coming together. Another thing that came out last year was Pricewaterhousecoopers winning in Asia. Okay. This is a huge project that they did over a couple of years. It's created a wonderful document, and it talks about, and it tells in chapter and verse, what are the things that companies need to be successful in Asia? Yeah. And the survey that they've done shows that very few companies have the expertise that's going to allow them to succeed in Asia in the ensuing years. And part of that is because it's, no offence, but it's old white blokes that are running them. And those old white blokes, they're not going to be the people that are going to go out and learn all this stuff, or learn another language, or want to make themselves Asia capable. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They're going to employ people that are Asia capable. So this is why
be Asia capable.
Exactly. So that's what they've got. It's what
PwC.
It's PwC wrote it for AsiaLink. Okay. At the University of Melbourne. So so they're saying it's Asia capable. Companies need to be Asia capable. So it's another reason why this international education is really, really important for the region.
Keep eating, otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. And this is one thing that I've seen also when we look at that kind of strategic shift. Of course, it's going to take time. It's going to take time, but you will see those kids who come up here and do their internships. Those who are able to adapt, able to operate. Yep. They're the guys and girls that you want to employ. And this is the thing that I've seen time and time again with the kind of quality of the students that you do bring up. Yep. And it really makes a difference, I think.
Well, that's the thing. Like, kids that are going to give up students that are going to give up their summer to come up
young
here.
Young adults.
To come up and work with companies here or anywhere are the ones that are going to be leaders in their field. They're going to be the ones that are going to go straight to the top of the pile on the CV list, because they're actually paying. They're paying for the experience. Yeah. They see it as an investment in the future. They get more than just that. That workplace experience. They get, like our friends Reese and Marlon, if they're watching, doing that crazy, made a video last year about going to the soccer, and the whole story of them getting the tickets and talking their way in and whatever else they did was hilarious. But they made a video that went viral and got picked up, and then other people were saying, "Oh, can you do some stuff for us?" That's something that they have on their LinkedIn. It's something that they can talk to a company about. They're going to go straight to the top of a recruiter's pile. Whereas those that spent the summer tanning themselves or playing cricket or whatever.
Cricket is important.
I got to stop you. Yes,
you picked the wrong sport. Surfing.
Surfing. Yeah. So that's it. That those that are smart enough to see. Taking 8 to 12 weeks to do something internationally, doesn't really matter where it is. But of course, I'm big on doing it in ASEAN because I think it's where the action will be in the next 10 years. So that makes them, gives them a leg up.
Yeah, exactly. That cutting edge. Yeah.
And it means that people here you know, they see them and they say wonderful things about them, you know, like you do, and they it might then that might then turn around that they say, look at these guys, they're so great, you know, they're all these students that we've had, they're wonderful. When my kids are old enough to go to university, where might I send them? Maybe I will send them to Australia because I can see the education that these guys are getting, you know, that works. So, you know, it's one of those things that goes a full 360.
Cycle. Yeah, exactly. And
you know, these guys are marketers for it.
I think this is one of the things that, and this is why I wanted to get you on the show. I mean, apart from, you know, you are, and I always continue to say this, one of the leading voices in student mobility, but student mobility is more than student mobility. It's, you know, it's the thread that you pull on, and you've got this whole tapestry attached to it. And I think that's where we're seeing this kind of understanding of the strategic importance of the education industry.
It is. It's really, and you know, like even, you know, I came here to set up the University of Melbourne office, you know, in 2007, and even when I was saying to people then, almost 14 years ago, people would say, "Where's Malaysia?" You know, and I had a Malaysian friend that went to do a PhD in University of Maryland, and she said, "God, for the first 6 months, trying to get people to understand where Malaysia was, you know, it was just a nightmare." And now all these guys, you know, when the students come here, they sort of don't know what to expect. You know, I think some of them think they're going to Bali, some of them think they're going to Singapore, you know, and it's sort of somewhere in the middle. You know, we've got this different thing going on here, and then they come in here and they go, "Oh my God, you know, it's concrete jungle, you know, the infrastructure we have, you know, the rail system, all that sort of stuff," and they're blown away. And the friendliness of Malaysians mean that they want to come back again. You know, this is a hub for the region. They can travel. They're always traveling. Langkawi, Singapore, they're always doing something. You know, so that's another flow-on effect that you know, without them doing that it's an added bonus. They're not just tourists; they're actually living, but they're doing touristy things while they're here. So you know, that's just another flow-on that probably wasn't here a few years ago. You know?
So when I mean, when we look at kind of like this post-COVID-19 recovery, when do you see Australia opening up? When will students be able to get back into Australia?
Well,
you know, what is that? You know, for the parents out there watching who's like, "Oh, I'm going to send my kids to Melbourne or send my kids to Sydney." I'm from Sydney.
I'm from Melbourne. But yeah, it's starting to. So we've already had the first group that arrived in Darwin for Charles Darwin University.
Sorry, actually, I'm from Wollongong. So, in the Blue Mountains, and there's a Wollongong University here, right?
Yes, there is now. Yes, yes.
Sorry for
University of Wollongong bought out KDU.
Yes,
that's right.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, so that's our fifth.
In case my mum is watching, I've got to behave myself.
Yeah, we had what was I saying?
Getting back into Australia.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry,
yeah, that's right. So we've had the first students arrive. I think 160 students arrived in Darwin to go to Charles Darwin University, and they were taken off the plane, taken out into the desert to army camp, I think, to do their quarantine.
All right.
And then
so that's real quarantine.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that's real quarantine.
Some high-level quarantine there.
So I'm not sure whether they were all at Charles Darwin or whether some were going to be able to go to other places in Australia.
Okay.
But there, I saw just earlier this week that Melbourne looks like it's going to try and open up so that students will return early in the new year. And Phil Honeywood, who is the CEO of International Education Association Australia, he is sort of touring the country, I understand at the moment, meeting with senior people in each state, trying to get that, you know, do some kind of deal, start letting it open up so that we can start getting them back into Australia. As far as outbound goes, I think that's going to be more problematic. Initially,
why is that? Why do you think of that?
Well, universities are really risk-averse institutions, and we're already, you know, looking at and being asked. You know, surprisingly, even my little company, we picked up 3 new partners during this this whole COVID pandemic, which is quite bizarre. But they were obviously people that wanted to get remote stuff happening. But in the workings with them, that's new agreements. They're really doubling down on insurance and what would happen. You know, what are your COVID practices? So we've had to work on what would be our COVID safe practices. So we've got students coming back here. and there's still the threat of COVID around. You know, what are we going to do? You know, if they're in an apartment, or if they're in a hotel or wherever they might be. So there's all that sort of stuff. Some universities have said outright until there is a vaccine, they won't let them travel. Some insurance.
Do they need to be vaccinated, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I think it's a personal choice. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a lot of people don't like to be vaccinated. You know, people take the flu shot in each winter arbitrarily, I guess. You know, according to their own personal taste. So, but you know, that could be a real issue. And I mean, for me, you know, or you know, going back to Australia, we might be at the point one day where we might have to have it to get on a plane. You know,
exactly.
So we had initially thought that we might
hold
open
ransom at needlepoint.
I know, you know, I don't really know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
But we were hoping that we'd have that we'd start getting momentum by mid-year, but we can see that that's not going to happen because universities are just not in the right place. They're sort of just drifting down towards closure this week, and then they will close, you know, for a few weeks. Most of them will be shut next week. You know, coming back the middle of January, then that gearing back up is going to be a real issue. Loss of staff, a lot of staff, you know, the huge losses of staff that's occurring. That's going to be a major adjustment. So even if the borders open, will students be able to afford a flight?
Yes.
Will they have to have a vaccine? Will they be able to be covered by insurance? So insurance is another issue now. Our insurance companies, you know, what are they putting in place? Are they going to cover students? If they don't cover students, will universities allow them to travel? You know, there's just a whole bunch of stuff that's got to be worked out. So we're sort of planning that hopefully we'll have them back for this time next year for our November programs.
Nice.
Hope so, but you know, not holding our breaths either.
No worries. Now, you also chair the Malaysia-Australia Business Council Committee on Education and Training. What do you see as the kind of position that the Malaysia-Australia relationship has been in this field, and what do you see it being in I think really the next 12 months are going to be so critical. We've seen the Malaysian government talk about re-engineering the economy, re-engineering, upskilling, reskilling, and dealing with this kind of new reality. What role will Australian education and play in that? And now we've seen so many universities, Australian universities, are part of the Malaysian education landscape.
Yeah, I think we have. What have we had? We have 4 universities here now with campuses, with University of Wollongong taking over KDU. That's you know, that's probably. I think Monash have probably done well out of people staying here rather than, you know, going abroad. So I think the 4 universities here are going to be well placed.
Thousands of students, I think.
It's been quite an interesting time because when international education sort of, you know, began in earnest in the large numbers in 1996, 97, initially the countries that they came from were Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Hong Kong. So I was an international student advisor at Deakin, and they were sort of the main 4. In recent years, they've...
Can you get the desserts also? Yeah, there's really good desserts here. Sorry, I keep distracting you.
That's all right.
It's the food part of this whole show.
That's all right. In recent years, they have... Malaysian numbers have dropped down, but Malaysia and Australia still enjoy a really, really strong relationship in this area. And of course, once borders do open up, students going abroad might look closer to home if they, you know, can't afford a 20-hour flight to London,
to Europe,
you know, that they might, you know, start looking at Asia, which would bring them, you know, into this region. And we always say Malaysia is probably the easiest because it's in the middle of everywhere.
Exactly.
So, you know, 2 hours from here, 2 hours from there. That's what's the beauty of it. We have very, very strong relationship between the Australian government and the Malaysian government. We have Australian universities providing advice and support to the Malaysian Ministry of Education here as well. But also the alumni is really huge. So we have an enormous amount of old Colombo scholars, you know, from the initial Colombo Plan days, in very senior roles here, and some very, very wealthy people like Ananda Krishnan and people like that who were all, you know, Australian university alumni. Those relationships, I think, will really will stand us in good stead in terms of getting people back down to Australia and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the other part is Malaysia. The largest diaspora, Malaysian diaspora outside of Malaysia, is in Melbourne.
Okay.
The second is in London, and the third is in Perth.
Okay.
So I think we're well positioned.
I would have guessed Perth straight
Melbourne
away.
first.
Okay.
If you've ever met anybody, whenever anybody says, "Oh, my brother-in-law, or my sister, my mother, whatever, is in Melbourne," I say, "Oh, in Glen Waverley," and they say, "Yes, you know them." I go, "Well, that's where they all are."
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's been a really strong relationship, and I think the work that the Australian government do here in maintaining that is instrumental in those things. So we have, we actually have a Department of Education Training counsellor. So we used to have Bernie Caruana. It's just changed over to Fiona Morris. Austrade with their team work with the agents and are working on the new program that will roll out. Well, it sort of has rolled out, but I think it hasn't been officially launched. Australia now, when they can do it physically.
Almost now.
Yeah, so it was meant to happen this year.
Yeah.
So I think that all of those things mean that we've actually got a very, very strong relationship, and I think that Malaysia will still continue to look to Australia for the support in upgrading and upskilling and things like that as well. Cool. Yeah.
No, I always have this. One of my favorite jokes, people ask me, have you been to Perth? And I would say, no, I'm not Malaysian. And of course, apologies to anyone who actually is from Perth. This is a joke we have in the family here. So, it's
huge.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I think that relationship, I think, is only going to get stronger.
Absolutely.
As the years go by.
And maybe in different ways as well. Perhaps not just that whole. What people have worked on a little bit this year, as well as not so much, while the focus has been off the student recruitment, which is a major part of the the Malaysia Australia or any Malaysia Australia any Asian country relationship. People have had to find ways to strengthen the relationships, and that's what it's been all about this year. And for years, there's been many bilateral agreements between Australian universities and Malaysian or any other universities in Asia. And they don't really amount to a lot quite often. They've signed them and there's a lot of conference ceremony. And, But this year people have had to return to those and dust those off and have a look and see how can we do stuff together, because that's going to be important next year as things open up. And it's being able to offer them something instead of just trying to get the students to come to Australia, being able to offer research relationships, partnerships that actually work, that sort of thing. So I think that's something that's come out of this year that has sort of, I guess, it's forced people to revisit those things instead of just sort of signing them and putting them on the wall or wherever they put them.
PR exercise.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get our hands on some dessert in a second.
They're pretty fancy desserts.
They're very. Yes, please. Yes, please. Although we haven't finished our
just want them for the colour.
I just want to show them. I was like, sometimes when you're like a kid, sometimes when it's good never to grow up, I think.
It's very nice to be in such a Christmassy place.
It's definitely, and then, here we go.
Oh my goodness, look at these. Is that a snowman?
I don't know what
it's a mushroom.
It's a mushroom guy.
A mushroom guy. Oh,
I don't know.
I'll pretend it's a snowman.
Yeah, he's not going to be a snowman for long because I'm going to eat him. This is the one I'm going to eat. And Jan's going to go in for the
the eclair with the. It's even got a little
bit of a Rudolph.
A little Rudolph happening there.
So
very cute.
So with that, I'm going to thank you, Jan, for joining us today, and just remind everybody, if you want to win this, you got to put a comment in the comments below. And Jan is going to be the sole judge.
Oh my goodness.
And we'll inform you guys on social media, whether it's on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Now we're coming to you live from 4 different channels. And so, Jan, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to let you eat the rest of your lamb, and thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
And also want to thank, of course, Le Méridien for hosting us today. Wonderful and we're going to get stuck into dessert, and we will see you again next week. Thank you very much.